Episode 16 of Twin Peaks was all about watching or watching over. And we saw two different aspects of this watching play out. We saw some people that were being watched, but didn't realize it. And we saw other people who didn't realize what they were watching. The funny thing about the theme in episode 16 is it doesn't actually provide us with any answers, but rather it reinforces that we don't know what's going on.
Hey, I'm G, and this is the G-Spot.
In the first scene, with Doppelganger and Richard, we see that Jerry is watching over them without them realizing it. And there's something that we can conclude about Jerry after this scene. When Jerry sees Doppelganger and Richard walking towards the rock, he says, "Oh my God," with dread in his voice, like he knows what's coming. We also see he actually collapses once the incident happens to Richard. This being that is overtaking Jerry is a source of good. He reacted with dread and actually collapsed over this event with Richard, over the loss of life. I'm not exactly sure what Jerry's role in the finale will be, but I feel that we can conclude whatever has overtaken Jerry is on the side of good. Also, with Doppelganger and Richard, we see that when Doppelganger sends Richard as a guinea pig up on the rock, that Doppelganger is watching something that he's unaware of. He doesn't know what's going to happen to Richard. That's why he sent him up there first. So in the first scene, we get both types of watching. We see that Doppelganger and Richard are being watched without their awareness, and we see Doppelganger watching something that he is unaware of. There's also a couple other things we can take from this scene. The fireman gave Cooper a clue in the first episode. Richard and Linda, 2 birds, 1 stone. And here we see Richard meet his end on the top of a stone. I have no doubt this is the stone the fireman was speaking of. The question left is, how will this stone affect Linda? I don't think we're necessarily going to see Linda meet the same fate as Richard. It's hard to say because we really don't know who Linda is yet, but we shouldn't assume that she's definitely going to meet the same end that Richard did when she stands on this stone. The other thing about this scene that I want to straighten out is about the coordinates. And there's two points about these coordinates that I want to make sure we're clear on. The first thing is that Doppelganger says to Richard, "I have 3 sets of coordinates," and this is before Diane texts him. Now, Diane has not texted the coordinates to Doppelganger in previous episodes. The only thing she did with the coordinates is Google search them. So when Diane texts those coordinates to Doppelganger, that is his 4th set of coordinates. He received 3 other sets before Diane texted him. The other thing I want to mention on the coordinates is everybody has assumed that the numbers Jeffries gave to Doppelganger were coordinates. And there's really no reason for us to assume this. Now, it is possible that they're coordinates. But what's not possible is that the numbers Jeffries gave Doppelganger match the numbers Diane has. If we look at these 2 sets of numbers, they do not match. And it doesn't matter what type of system these numbers belong to, they're not the same numbers. They do have digits that are in common. And yes, those digits are in the same exact order. You could see they line up there. But in no way can we say these 2 are the same number. If I put a $sign in front of these 2 numbers, nobody's going to say that they equal each other. There is a huge difference. So I do not believe that Jeffries gave Doppelganger coordinates. I know that the numbers Jeffries gave Doppelganger do not match the numbers that Diane gave him. And we also know that Doppelganger at this point in time has 4 sets of coordinates. As far as what to do with all this coordinate information, I actually think it's really simple. And the answer is, the only coordinates that matter are the coordinates that Diane gave Doppelganger. Those are the coordinates that lead to this ultimate end game, and that's where Doppelganger wants to be. I do believe that the numbers Jeffries gave to Doppelganger are a way to get in contact with Judy, but have nothing to do with coordinates. On Lancelot Court, we again see a lot of watching. Both Hutch, Chantel, and the FBI are watching the Joneses' house without the Joneses being aware of it. And then we also see Hutch and Chantel watching the neighbor pull up in the white car and not knowing what they're watching. They think they're just watching an ordinary guy, they have no idea they're watching the guy who is a big enough threat to actually kill them. And the same thing with the FBI. The FBI is down the street while this huge gunfight goes down. And they have no clue as to what's going on, why the gunfight occurred, or who's involved in it. And then again, the same thing with the Mitchum brothers. We see it best with them when they sneak out of the Joneses' house to peek at what's going on. And they ask, what kind of neighborhood is this? Because they don't understand what they're watching. Our first scenes in the hospital show us everybody watching over Dougie without him realizing it. And this brings up an interesting point of note because we see that Dougie has come full circle in our story. When we first meet Dougie, he is in need of help. He tries to get help from Jade, but Jade isn't interested in helping him. And then he wanders into the casino, and nobody in the casino helps him out, even though it's obvious he does need help. Now, at the end of Dougie's story, or sort of end, when Cooper wakes up, we see that Dougie has all the help he could need. He has Janie E., Sonny Jim, Bushnell, and the Mitchum brothers all there ready to help him. And we see that throughout the rest of the episode with the Mitchum brothers really ready to help Dougie for whatever he needs. Once Cooper wakes up, we see the theme actually flipped when we realize that while Cooper was living as Dougie, he was well aware of everything that was going on around him. He knows who the people in his life are and what he needs them to do. At the same time, we see Sonny Jim and Janie E. watching Dougie, not knowing who this man is. Cooper is so different than Dougie. He's acting so differently. They don't realize who they are seeing, and they question it a couple times. We also see that as soon as Cooper wakes up, he begins watching over Janie E. and Sonny Jim. We get to Diane, and we see Diane doesn't realize what the text is that she's looking at. It's not just a text, it is a command meant to put Diane into a particular action. We see Diane struggle with this command throughout the entire scene. She is struggling with her free will. Then Diane walks into the room, she sits down, and we see Gordon, Albert, and Tammy not realizing they are watching a tulpa. On top of this, we see that Diane has been being watched without realizing it. And we know this because as soon as Diane starts to break down, she is just pulled out of the room by whoever was watching over her. Diane doesn't know what she's watching. We hear Diane say, "I'm in the sheriff's station." Well, if she's in the sheriff's station, then what she's watching is the sheriff's station. But if she's with the FBI, then what she's watching is the FBI. So Diane is not sure about what she is seeing or watching. Once we get to the Bang Bang and Audrey's dance, the theme is flipped on to us, the audience, because we really don't know what we're watching. Is Audrey's dance an actual thing happening in reality? What is that fight all about and who's involved in it? And then ultimately, where is Audrey when she's in this white space? Audrey doesn't know what she's watching when she's in that white space. She's very confused, and all she can say is, what? One thing I want to point out is there's no indication in episode 16 when Audrey goes from the bar to the white space. There is no indication of her waking up. Audrey is fully awake at the bar, and as soon as we see her in the white space, she is standing up and fully awake. We did not see Audrey wake up at all, and there's no reason for us to introduce waking up into what happened to Audrey. She may be closer to finding out the real truth of what's going on, but she did not wake up. This leaves us with two possibilities for what happened with Audrey. One, Audrey was literally taken out of the bar and brought through the fifth dimension to a higher density. And Charlie saw Audrey disappear right in front of his eyes. That's the first possibility. The second possibility is that Audrey's tulpa is still in the bar in front of Charlie, but the real Audrey is trapped somewhere in a higher density. For me, it's the second one of these that rings true, and it's because of the line that Audrey and Diane shared together. They both said, "I'm not me," and this cannot be overlooked. This is a big hint to us. It's a big clue. that Audrey and Diane are experiencing the same feelings because they're experiencing the same thing. And what they were experiencing is both of them are kind of becoming aware that they're a tulpa and not the real person. So although there really is no definite way to know what is going on with Audrey right now, I have to say there is more evidence leaning us towards Audrey being a tulpa. I'm very excited about the finale. I can't wait to get some of these answers. Just so you know, they are running a marathon on Sunday. They're going to run episodes 1 through 16 before they premiere the final 2 episodes. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.